New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Hello and welcome to Growing Edge Live. I'm Allie Benjamin, and it is my great joy to be here today. Here at the Growing Edge, we have conversations with soul-centered individuals that channel their time, their energy, their love, their resources into doing good work in the world. And every week I have a conversation with people, with someone from all walks of life, from artists to authors to ministers to coaches. And today I have the great joy of bringing my good friend, Michele Whittington, as a guest to Growing Edge Live. So welcome, Michele.
Hello. Thank you, Allie. I'm so happy to be here.
You're back. You've been on the show several times now. I think this might be your third appearance.
I think so. I love being a returnee.
I know. I think the last time we were chatting was in person at Unity Village.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And that was for the affiliated New Thought Network annual retreat.
Yes.
Which is, you and I have been meeting up at these retreats for a couple of decades.
I was about to say at least 2 decades, maybe a bit more.
I know. It's been Anton, or the affiliated New Thought Network, has been such a comfort and an inspiration and a loving community and a source of a lot of wisdom for me. A lot of healing has taken place just being a part of the community and then coming together once a year for a retreat. It's been an amazing couple of decades.
Yeah, ditto to everything you just said. It's yeah. Go ahead.
No, well, I wanted to introduce you a little bit more than my friend who would like to go to retreats.
We just want to jump right in, but yeah, go ahead and introduce me, Allie.
Yeah. So Michele is not only my friend, she is a minister like I am. She also has her doctorate, and she's also the executive director. Okay, executive director of the affiliated New Thought Network. And she is also a coach, and she is also an author. And so we'll touch base on all of those things. But I think most importantly, I really am excited to learn about your new project, your new work. And so we'll dive into that in just a little bit. The funny thing is that in preparing for this conversation, I went on Michele's website and I clicked purchase on the book that I thought we were going to talk about today. And it's an amazing book, Heroine Tales. So no woman has to slay her dragons alone. I love that. The only thing is, this isn't the book we had decided to talk about. So I am really happy I got this book. I have at least 10 women I know that would really benefit from these inspiring tales, these tales of women that have overcome some really tough obstacles in their lives. And so I'd love to talk a little bit about this.
Of course.
So what was it that inspired you to co-author this book with another Michele Davis? And was there instantly when you had this idea to share stories of women, was there a story of your own that inspired you?
Well, actually, Allie, I've got to step back many years when I was a minister of a church. I'm not any longer a minister of a church, but I was for many years. And I facilitated, that's kind of a big word for this because it really wasn't much facilitation. I orchestrated a silent a women's retreat. So I didn't have a lot of work to do because we were all silent most of the time. But during the silence in one of the days, I asked women to write their story and put it in like a parable or a fable or something like that, where they're the heroine. This was 10, 15 years ago. And then the closing ceremony was each woman read her story. And I was blown away at those stories. My heart was touched deep. We learned things about these women that we had no idea, the obstacles they had overcome, no idea. And it was deep and profound. And I thought then, this needs to be a book. But life happened, came back, went back into the activities of ministry, which can be, as you know, Allie, a bit overwhelming, ministry of a church. And that idea went away. It just went away. Fast forward probably 15 years, I'm talking to my friend, Michele Davis, one day, and I don't know how it came up, but I said something about that retreat and how I think that's still a great idea. And she went, oh my gosh, I've been thinking the same thing. She wasn't at the retreat, but she said, I've just been thinking, what if we got a group of women to share their triumphs over difficulties? And that was the moment where, like, bingo, we'll do this together. So we fleshed out kind of, the concept and came up with this idea of slaying our dragons, but that we don't have to do it alone because we've got support from other women. And then we started reaching out to some of our friends to ask if they wanted to play and to write an article. And then this book was born.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And I've always enjoyed, I've been part of women's groups and founded a big women's retreat in California years ago, the Women of Wisdom. And so it's always been in my energy to support other women and to really embrace how, even though we're so unique and have our different paths and different stories and different challenges and different strengths, we also have this deep connectivity where we can really come together and embrace our individuality as well as our unity. And so this book is a way of doing that I think women will find really helpful.
Yeah.
We're not alone.
We're definitely not alone. And societally, women have been alone in that, just looking out at the world, there's so much competition among women and trying to beat somebody else, whether it's for the job or for the partner or, to be the prettiest or whatever. And there's jealousy and there's competition out in the world. And so women don't always feel safe around other women. And one of my missions in life is to create space for women to feel safe and heard and loved by other women. Because when that happens, Allie, you've had enough experience with women's groups. It's that magic happens. And so everything, not everything, but a lot of what I do into my work today surrounds supporting women in becoming who they came here to be, with the support, loving, caring, non-judgmental support, cheerleading of other women. Yeah. So this book is, obviously an offshoot of that desire.
Yeah. So why don't we talk a little bit about the work that you're doing now, and where it came from? What really inspired you to be such an advocate for women and be willing to step into that space of bringing people together when, like you said, for most of us, we grew up in competition with each other or fearful of each other because for whatever reason,
Right.
women can be hard on each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that question, Allie, and I'm not really sure I know the answer, but let's just tap into that. And so I did serve as a minister of a church for 22 years. And when I stepped down from that, before I stepped down from that, I had taken some training with a woman by the name of Rachel Jane Groover, who has a system called the Art of Feminine Presence. And I stepped into that, long story, we don't need to go into those details, but kind of not intentionally looking for that, but I went to an open house and reception that she was speaking at, heard her speak and thought, wow, she's got some things to say here about the power of women. So I really loved it. And I dug into her work. I ultimately became trained as a coach in that. And that's what started my desire to really help women and support women. Because I realized, even though I was successful as a, leader of a church, etc., I still had stuff in me that, am I good enough to do this? Am I doing it right? Da, da, da. And I realized that we all go through that, and let's support each other. So when I stepped away from the church, my work started, my independent, individualized work, which is now 7 years ago, working exclusively with women on these tools and practices that I was coached in and trained in for Art of Feminine Presence. I've now gone way beyond that in terms of just broadened what I do, but that desire to help all individuals, men who are listening, I love you and I do not exclude you. And I love working with you as well. And I work with men as well, but I do have a particular love for helping women see who they are and express who they are.
Yeah. And that's very obvious in the work that you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
How has your women friends and women's circles, how have they supported you? Can you give us an example of when maybe you were in a low point, and
yes.
How having that close network or sisterhood or community of women has supported you?
Well, many, many ways, my friend, many ways. But the biggest one that comes to me when you ask that question is I think I was offering I'm going to say, second women's circle in the Art of Feminine Presence when my beloved husband of almost 30 years passed away. Mm-hmm. And part of me said, I just need to not be doing that class right now. I just, need to deal with my grief. But there was a piece of me that went, no, you need to be in the circle with these women. You're their teacher, but you need them right now. And I think they'll be there for you. So I reached out and said, I still want to do this class. And they all said, are you crazy? But okay, we're 100% in. And they nurtured me. They loved on me during that period of time. So that's a huge example. And then over the years, it's been 7 years since he passed. Can't believe it's been that long, but it has. There have been many times so when I teach a class, I don't put myself up as like, I have all the answers. I've got it all figured out. I don't ever have anything to deal with. It's you guys that are working. I'm working just like everybody else. Whatever the topic is we're exploring, I'm exploring it for me. And they support me just like I support them, and they support each other. So we're in it together. It's not teaching. I'm bringing some knowledge maybe, but then we're all digging into this concept, this practice, these ideas, and how can we all grow from them, me included. So I share, this is my struggle. This is where I am with this. This is my understanding. This is what I'm going to do to make a shift. And they're all there supporting me like we're supporting each other.
That's a beautiful example.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it's been that length of time that Lonnie left. And I'm thinking now, as the women were support for you during that time, it seems like writing has also been something that you've lent on or explored in processing your feelings and emotions. So you wrote another book, and this probably was There we go. From our hearts to yours. Stories and lessons on conscious loving, conscious dying, and conscious living.
Yeah.
So tell us about that journey, how that supported you.
Yeah. I never thought I would write a book. I didn't need to write a book. Everything's been said. I don't need to say it again. That was my mind. But about probably 9 months after Lonnie passed, there was just this in me, because he and I really did make a decision to walk through the end of his life awake and aware and conscious of what was happening, having deep conversations, not sugarcoating it, not spiritually bypassing it, but walking together through this journey. Like I said, fully awake and fully conscious. And it occurred to me about 9 months after he passed that journey we took, I'm not sure everybody takes it that way. It takes a journey like that through the dying process. And maybe it would be helpful. Maybe it would be helpful for others to hear that. And the other thing then came is like, we also had a beautiful relationship of almost 30 years. It was an exquisitely happy and joy-filled and supportive and nurturing relationship. And I know not all partnerships are like that. And so it occurred to me that maybe I could talk about that too. It was like, what is it that we did? Because we were, again, very conscious about creating a loving, safe space to be who we were and to support each other. So how did we do that? So, and then, my life, it was only 9 months after he passed, but nonetheless, things were starting to shift for me. And, I was starting to heal a bit. What's my life after he passed? So those were the 3 areas, my life, our relationship, then our conscious walking through his passing, and then my life after, at that point anyway. And it all hit me that I think I need to write about this. So I did.
So you did. So what, can you sort of give us some understanding of what this means to have a conscious relationship with someone? Because people hearing this may not, they hear the word conscious, and for those of us in New Thought, we think everyone understands what that means. Yeah. So what is having a conscious relationship? What are some of the elements of that kind of relationship?
Well, I love that you're asking me that, Allie, because I'm now turning to page 40 in this book, because I have a whole section, because this book is in the 3 sections, and one of the sections is what makes a relationship work. And I think I got 9 things here, 10. I have a little checklist at the end. I explain all of them and talk about them and give examples. And at the end, I have a little checklist of this is what we did anyway. I don't know that other, this is what we did. So by conscious, to answer your question, is awake. Right? I'm awake to my own feelings and my side of the sidewalk here, or my side of the street. When something comes up, and he was the same. When I say we both were committed to not blaming the other one for something that we didn't like, but to be present to it for ourselves. What's my side? Let's talk about it. And the biggest thing, if I were going to go deeper into one of these items and the checklist, is we were committed from the get-go, and it kind of just evolved organically, to create a safe space so that either of us could say whatever we needed to say and know that it would be heard and received without judgment or defense. Because usually in relationships, just look at the movies. Look at movies or TV shows, and you'll watch. This is how it goes. One of the partners says, I need to talk to you about something. I'm really upset. And the other one says, okay, I want to hear it. Tell me. You can tell me anything. And then the person starts to say, well, when you did blah, blah, blah. And instantly that party goes, what do you mean when I did that? I didn't do that. Or what you do? Well, you do this. Where's the safe space? Where's the place to hear, to be a container, to hear what your partner's saying? It's out the window, because the defenses go up, right?
Yes.
So we were committed not to do that, to take a breath and listen, knowing that there was some truth. We might not agree with everything the person is, I may not have agreed with everything he said when he was unhappy with me. And my brain could go, I didn't do that. I didn't say that. That's not how it went. In my brain, I did that, but I'm like, wait a minute. What matters here? What matters here is this relationship. and my partner is hurting. I need to listen.
Mm.
And there is a degree, probably a big degree of truth in what he's saying. I need to find that. And that's how we did it. And that's a big reason our relationship was what it was.
Yeah, it's not easy to have that level of vulnerability and to establish that field of trust. Because we do, like you said, we defend ourselves. We don't want to be wrong. We don't want to feel like we've harmed anyone. And so there's a lot of reasons that our, ego can create stories and defenses. And yeah. So that's conscious relationship. And then that, I imagine, extended into conscious dying. And that's a whole next level. Yeah.
And so he had a bad heart. And in 2012, he had a major, I said major open heart surgery once to a doctor, and he said, you don't need to put the word major in front of that because open heart surgery is enough. You don't need to say major. But he had this massive open heart surgery, and hopefully, we thought we got everything fixed, but about a year later, he started having the same symptoms. And we're back in the hospital and discovered, and we're told by his cardiologist that we've done everything we can do for your heart. It's just so damaged. You need a new heart. That's the only thing that's going to fix this now. You need a new heart. And here is for me, like the first moment that I had to be conscious to what my husband wanted, not what I wanted, what he wanted. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's get you on the donor list, because he was healthy. He was 65 years old, 64 years old, right? Healthy as can be, everything other than his heart. So healthy, ate well, took care of himself. I said, let's get you on the donor list. He said, absolutely not. I'm like, excuse me? I beg your pardon? He said, I will never go through open heart surgery again. Never. Never. I do not want to do that. I do not want to do a new heart. And I had to take a breath and go, what are you talking about? You could stay here. If you don't do that, you are going to die. He said, I know, and I'm going to let nature take its course.
Wow.
So I had to honor, because it's his body, Allie. It was his body. It's his life. It's his choice. And I had to honor that. That was the first place. I'm like, all right, I'm in, I'm with you. What do you need? What do you want? How do we do this? Let's go. And, he lived 4 more years. After that, a lot of which was shocked the doctors because his heart was in such bad shape, but he lived a pretty normal life. We didn't do some of the things we'd done before, as rambunctious as he was, a thrill seeker and loved to do scuba diving and bungee jumping and all that kind of stuff. But, he didn't do those kind of things, but he was good. He was good until he wasn't, until his heart took another turn. And then we knew, like, all right, we already knew there was nothing to be done. And then we got into the really conscious conversations about, all right, we're walking this road now. Here it is. So what do you want? I'm here. And that's what we did. Yeah.
And do you think this kind of conscious journey throughout your whole relationship, through your marriage, and then through this health crisis, led to your ability to consciously grieve after he left?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so we had time to process his passing right before he left, which I feel so grateful for and so blessed. I'm one of my neighbors here at where I live. Her husband just passed away, and he was fine, and then he collapsed and he was gone. And I think how painful that is, because you have no warning, you have no ability to prepare, you don't get to say your goodbyes. How awful that is. So I feel blessed. If there is a blessing in this, that we got to walk this, a month. We had a month of really knowing his heart was done, and it was just a matter of when it's going to stop beating. but we had a month. And so the ability to do that, to say everything, to have not one regret, not one thing left unsaid, nothing, to be there for each other. I took that month off. I didn't really work at all, a little bit, but not much. I stayed home, and we just got to cocoon. And he even said, he wrote a couple of emails to our spiritual community, because people wanted to know what was happening with him. They loved him as much as, well, not as much as I did, but they loved him a lot. And he wrote a couple of emails to them just to let them know. And he said in his second email, which was just about 2 weeks before he passed, he said that I didn't think it was possible for Michele and me to get any closer, but this journey has brought us even closer. I was like, I'm gonna cry. Yeah. So to answer your question, yes, being able to walk that with him, speak what we needed to say, love each other deeply, helped. Yeah. I mean, grief still sucks. It's awful, and you have to go through it. But yes, I think it helped.
So 7 years it will be.
Yeah, this month.
And wow. So what do you know about grief today? Because, like the title of my show, The Growing Edge, we're always at the growing edge of our own evolution, of our own life, of our own becoming. What do you know about grief today that, you've had feelings for 7 years, so it's not new. But is there something you would say to someone today that's lost a loved one, to help them with this idea of conscious grieving?
Yeah, I would definitely say, do not run away from your feelings. Feel every moment of grief. I know I see it happen a lot. People just stay, women. I mean, I've known a lot of women who have lost their husbands since I lost Lonnie. They run into activity. They get busy. They do this. They do that. They don't let themselves feel. But all you do when you don't let yourself feel the grief is it just goes inside. It doesn't go away. It goes inside, and it sits there and starts to like solidify in you. And 20 years from now, you're going to still be feeling awful, but not expressing it because you haven't let it out. So what I did, not that I did it all perfectly, believe me, I didn't. But one thing that I did was, whenever I got overtaken by debilitating grief, which happens and it's not fun and you don't want to be there, I let myself be there. And I canceled appointments. I canceled, plans. I was going to go to the movies with a friend. I'm like, nope, can't do it today. Nope, today I'm going to be in a ball and cry. That's what I'm going to do today. And I set that precedent early on, and my friends were like, okay, I got it. Can I help? No. And I would even, like a day or two after it happened, I may mention to someone else that, man, I had a couple of rough days. And they said, why didn't you call? I would have been there for you. I'm like, no, because if I called you and talked to you, I would have been taken out of those feelings, and I needed to be in them. Yeah. So I didn't reach out because I needed to be in them. Now, having said that, you also don't want to live there for months on end. That becomes, that can turn to depression and be very debilitating. So there's a balance between reaching out and being supported and giving yourself the space to feel. But I absolutely would say, give yourself the space to feel. And the other thing I observed last year, actually, Allie, right about this time, because at the anniversary, you start thinking more about it and all. Last year, I realized that there had been a tipping. And, I have no idea if 6 years is the mark or it was just the mark for me. But the tipping of the anniversary brought more feelings of sweetness and joy and gratitude and love for the relationship we had than it brought grief and sadness that it was gone. Previous anniversaries, yes, always joyful. I mean, always grateful, always appreciative and tender for the love we had. But the grief was bigger than that. So the balance shifted from more grief to more gratitude and joy. And this year it feels like it's even more now. More. Usually if we'd been having this conversation, I would have cried a lot more than those few tears I just shed. But it's just because I've shifted a bit more.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're where you are.
Me too.
And I know that you have so much to be grateful for
I do.
based on the relationship that you had with Lonnie.
I do.
All right.
And the other thing, may I?
No, yes.
Is, and I know in our beautiful New Thought teachings, we don't do guilt. But I have to say there is some guilt in me, when I say these words, but they're true. I would not be who I am today if Lonnie were still here. I would not be living the life that I'm living, which I love. Honestly, I love it. I wouldn't be living this life. So part of me is like, well, I would still, I think, make the choice to have him be here. But I don't get that choice. That's not a choice I get. And I do love this life, and I'm grateful that I have it. And that he helped me create a foundation so I could live this. So I could step away from a church of 22 years that I was really ready to step away from anyway, but I hadn't. And I don't think I would have if he hadn't passed. I wouldn't have done that. I probably still would be the minister of the church. Maybe, I don't know. But I wouldn't have stepped out on the ledge like I did. I wouldn't have friends like I have. I wouldn't be on your podcast. I mean, I just wouldn't have experienced the life I'm experiencing now if he were still here.
Yeah, I can feel that. I can see that for you in your life. It's, as you're saying it, I'm reflecting too on the truth of that. With each loss, we move over a threshold into a whole new experience, and it's a both and. It's yes, we so miss and wish our loved ones were still here, and
yes,
a whole new chapter has opened up. It's inevitable.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to a break.
Okay, I knew we needed to do that soon.
We'll be back in just a minute.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life. on the growing edge. On the growing edge.
And now, here's Allie.
Welcome back. We're here with my friend Michele Whittington, and we've been talking about a lot already: conscious living, conscious relationships, conscious grieving, conscious dying. Whew, that's a lot. And I know that, just like we were talking at the beginning about sharing our stories really, really helps. Knowing that we're not alone and learning from each other, those of us that have gone through things that others haven't, that we're all likely to go through at one point or another. So now I want to switch gears a little bit to this new book that you've just produced, and this is 10 Keys to Living Your Best Life. And if I was a really good podcast host, I'd be holding the book up right now.
Well, guess what, Allie? I can do that for you. How's that? That it? Can you see it? Yep.
There it is. 10 Keys to Living Your Best Life. So tell us about this work and where did it come from? Because I know that you work with a lot of people. I can't say just women because I know it's men too. So you work with a lot of people. And so this probably came from the work you've been up to?
It did. Yeah. So 2.5 years ago, I decided, I was just thinking about what can I offer people that is somewhere between so I do a lot of, let me back up. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, a lot of mentoring. I have a lot of mentoring clients. Mentoring is expensive. It is. It's a costly thing. And not everybody has the resources to mentor, nor they don't want to do that. They're not into that. And I understand that. So I started thinking, what could I offer on a kind of a long-term basis to support those people who are not interested in one-on-one mentoring or coaching, but really do want to take their life to the next level. My business is called Unleash Your Life. Take the brakes off and embrace your dreams. So that's what I'm all about. I'm all about helping people get to where they want to go and get the roadblocks out of the way. So I thought, what can I do? And I just sat in meditation and prayer about that. And this boom, boom, this idea hit. What if I did a year-long program? Made it quite reasonable. It's a monthly fee. It's a reasonable fee. And in that program, I got to figure out what I'm going to offer. But one of the things I'm going to offer is a monthly workshop. And then there's other things involved as well. But a monthly workshop where we all come together, either physically in person in my office in Phoenix, Arizona, or I have people all over the country. So we Zoom them in and we put them on a big screen and we have a camera so they can see the room. So I make it, I want to have my online people as involved as possible so that they feel part of the group. And so every month I create an activity for this workshop that supports people in up-leveling and manifesting their dreams and their goals. What is it that they want? What are their heart's desires? And I create something unique every single month. So we had it for a year, and then the second year rolled around, and I thought, well, I wonder if anybody's gonna, keep going or re-enroll. And most of them are like, yeah, we are. And so I had returnees, and then I had new people coming in. I didn't want to repeat anything we'd done because I had returnees. So I wanted them to get unique experience. So I wrote a whole new set of things. And now year 2 is done. I've got year 3 starting this year in 2025. I have a lot of repeat customers who have been with me 2 years, some with me 1 year, and now some with me new. And I'm creating all new content. And it occurred to me, this is a long answer to your question, but it does get here finally. It occurred to me that these new people didn't get the benefit of all the stuff we've done in the past. And sometimes we refer back to that stuff, those teachings, and they don't know what we're talking about. Thus, this book was born. I decided to take the 10 top workshops that I had taught in the last 2 years. Some of them were so very interactive that it didn't really fit in a book. So I just pulled 10 and made them into practices that could go into a book. So all of my new people in, I call it Your Best Year Yet is the name of the program. All of my new people got a copy of this book as a freebie, as a thank you for starting with us this year. And I gave a deep discount to all my other folks who I didn't honestly think would want it, because they'd already done the practice and had gotten materials, and they're like, oh no, we want it too. So I sold it to them for a very deep discount. Now I just have it available to anyone who wants it. But that's how it came about. So it's 10 of the practices that came out of the Best Year Yet program. And I've already, since I published this in February, I've already, done new ones for this year. And I'm like, well, the next round of publication, I think I'm going to make it a dozen and add more in here, because I've got some that I really love that I'd love to put in this book. Yeah.
So that's such a brilliant idea. Especially how your group is structured, and with so many people returning, but the newbies have not had the benefit of those exercises or those keys.
Yes.
So I'm thinking there needs to be one every year. Another 10 keys, another 10 keys, another 10. Anyway,
the next 10 keys. Yeah, you might be right. Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
So what, maybe you can share with us some of one or two, or however many we have time for, some of these keys that are super helpful for people in taking that next step or whatever.
Yeah. So the first one I would say is a concept called upper limits. I didn't make this concept up. Gay Hendricks, in his book, The Big Leap, which he wrote many years ago, the concept is in there. I've heard it from various places, but I've kind of taken it and making it my own. And I've seen this concept play out in my own life, and I've watched it play out in other people's lives. And the idea is that we have an unconscious ceiling, upper limit, to how much good we will allow in our lives. How it got there, go to therapy to sort that out. That's not what I'm about. I'm about recognizing that it exists, seeing when it happens, and not letting it stop you. And so it shows up. It can show up. Oh, thank you. There's my site. I love it. It can show up in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways is a physical issue. So what happens is you start to get to that edge. You're wanting to go beyond it. You're wanting to create things you've never done before. You're wanting to expand in ways you've never expanded before. And your upper limit says unconsciously, oh no, nope, you can't do that. So we're going to do something to make sure you don't. And a physical thing, and this happened for me, so it's very real for me. A physical thing happens that knocks you off track. You could also have emotional stuff that happens. You can have things happen in other people that take you, but it's things that take you off track from moving forward in this expanded dream. Right? I can be very specific if we have time for
give us an example.
Okay. So for me, this happened. Allie, you will probably remember this. 3 big things happened for me a decade or more ago. I had a desire. I was a minister for my church. I had a desire to take myself and my church to the next level. I wanted to take myself as a speaker beyond the walls of my own church. I wanted to have a bigger presence in our New Thought world. And I really, my church was amazing and wonderful, and we had been kind of stagnated at a certain level. I was ready for us to go to the next level. So 3 things happened. We had, at the church, created this whole amazing plan to take us to the next level. We had the first meeting of the congregation to talk about it. There was so much enthusiasm and passion and excitement. We were on fire. Number 1, that happened. Number 2, I was invited to give the keynote. I'd never done a keynote at our affiliated New Thought Network conference. I did a keynote at the Franciscan Renewal Center, and I sang. Do you remember that, Allie?
Oh, yes.
Huge, out of my comfort zone. I'm not a singer. And that was received like I never anticipated it being received, so well.
I can go back there in an instant in my memory and see you and hear you and feel the energy of everyone standing up and giving you just a standing ovation for your, you can sing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, for you, the song that you sung, for the bravery, for the vulnerability, for you trying something so out of your comfort zone. That is something we all felt, and it created an energy in that room that was undeniable.
Thank you. Thank you. And that was my vision, that I wanted to do things like that beyond my congregation. I wanted to get out beyond my congregation and do that very thing. And I had a lot of people come up to me after that and say, you know, you need to be a voice of new thought. And I see you as the next president of Anton. And okay, so that was number 2. Number 3, like a week later, I got to share the stage as a co-presenter at Mary Morrissey's women's workshop, women's retreat, an annual women's retreat. It was huge to stand next to my mentor, a woman who had been my mentor. And I looked up to her so much, to stand next to her as an equal. Those 3 things happened. Amazing. I am on fire. I am ready to go. The Monday after Mary's workshop, I went to the grocery store to get some food for lunch before I went into the office, and I fell 3 times. Fell, got back up, fell, got back up. No, fell, got back up, fell, hurt myself, I knew, hobbled back up, and then fell again. There was a shoe component involved in this. There was, but it was bigger than the shoe. So the bottom line is I broke both bones in this wrist, and I fractured my tibia plateau in my left knee. Obviously took me down physically. Took me about a month to get back to church. I'm on a walker, blah, blah, blah. All of those 3 big dreams, gone. The big project at church, faded. Unconsciously, I went back to thinking, you know, life is good the way it is. I don't need to be doing all that stuff. I'm good. It wasn't until 5 years later, when I was at a conference at a retreat and heard this concept of upper limit and how physical stuff can happen, I went, oh no, my fall, while shoes were involved, they were the vehicle, but that was my upper limit. Going, oh no, girl, you can't do all that. You can't do all that. That was my upper limit.
So wow. So how, you said 5 years it took you to realize. How does one navigate this?
Yeah. So I have a surefire, and it's in the keys here, way to deal with an upper limit. First of all, you have to be conscious that they might show up when you are starting to reach beyond where you've been, to take something big on. Be aware that an upper limit it might not, but it might kick in. Know the ways it kicks in. There's like 8 or 9 ways an upper limit can kick in. The physical is just one way. It happens to be my way because I've had a couple more happen. Not that dramatic. But be aware of how it can kick in. So this is all about being awake and aware, and to use our word conscious, being aware of stuff. So you're getting ready to pop up, you're getting ready to do something you've never done before, take it bigger, and something happens. You fall, you get depressed, there's a bunch of different ways. Ask yourself in prayerful, meditative, contemplative, ask, could this be an upper limit? And listen. If you get a no, like, okay, well, all right, it's not. All right. If you get a yes, or I'm not sure, treat them the same way. And so then you go to step 2. And step 2 is to look at that upper limit in the face and have a predetermined statement that you're going to give it. And my statement is, you're not the boss of me. Upper limit, you're not the boss of me. Said with some attitude. And so I teach my students come up with a statement that you will say to it. You are not the boss of me. You're not, get thee behind me, Satan. Not that we believe in Satan, but get thee behind me, Satan is what I've heard people say. I've heard more colorful things to be said to them. Say a statement and then look at what you can do, even if you have to make adjustments to keep yourself moving forward. Even if you have to take a momentary break. Literally, if I had known all this back when I fell, I had to heal. My body had to heal. It went through trauma. I mean, I fell 3 times. That's traumatic. I had surgery. I didn't have surgery, but I was in the hospital for 3 days and you know, I couldn't walk. It was a mess. I had to heal, emotionally, physically heal. But had I known all this then, I wouldn't have let it stop me. And I did. So you don't let it stop you. And you keep taking steps if you can, even though they may be modified, and you get fully back on track when you can. And what that does is when your upper limit was here, takes it to here. Now I say that as we keep growing, we'll keep raising it, but it doesn't ever go away. We just keep raising it.
So when you heard this concept of upper limit 5 years after this event, what happened? What opened up for you, and what did you then, you know, how did your upper limit raise at that point? Or
yeah. Well, I offered I don't know how much, 6 months, let's say, after I had that realization, I offered a women's retreat on my own. I'd never done a women's retreat on my own where I was the featured facilitator speaker. I'd done women's retreats, but I had brought people in. I had brought Mary Morrissey in. I had brought Ricky Byers in. I brought a lot of different people in. This one I did on my own. That was huge. I had 100 women at this women's retreat, 3 days, and it was all my stuff.
Congratulations. Yeah.
I had a little upper limit episode that happened with that too, but I didn't let it stop me. I saw it. I'm like, oh, there you are. Okay, I see you. You're not the boss of me. I can do this anyway, even with this issue. I popped my jaw out of joint. The day I was heading up to Sedona for the retreat, I popped my jaw out of joint. I was in a lot of pain that whole weekend with my jaw. I didn't let it stop me. When I came home, I went to the dentist. We got to adjust this, which we did. We took care of it. I know it was upper limit though. I'm going to spend the weekend talking, sharing. What do? I pop my jaw out of joint. That's pretty funny, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, that sounds very painful.
It was painful. It hurt to eat, it hurt to laugh, and I didn't care because I was doing this.
All right, so I think we have time for another. Do you have another one up your sleeve?
Oh, okay. Well, the other one that I'll say is fear. Fear and what are called safe problems. So anytime we're going to step beyond and experience something grander and bigger in a dream, we're going to be afraid because we've never done it before. Growing edge stuff is scary. And then we're going to create, they're sort of like upper limits, but not quite, safe problems. Safe problems are issues that will, that happen, we create in our subconsciously in our brains so that we don't have to face this scary thing. Quick example, as a minister, I always said I was going to take a retreat and quiet silence, be in the silence and just vision for my church. I'm going to do that. This is really important for me to do. It would be a really good thing for me to do. You know when I did that? Never. You know why? I didn't have time. I didn't have time. My safe problem was I will do this when I have time. I never had time. In a ministry, you never have time. You create space. But when I started looking at this from a fear perspective and dug in and was willing to look at it, what I realized was I was afraid that if I did that, I wouldn't get anything. That I didn't have a big really deep, big vision, that there was nothing there. And I didn't want to find that out. Yeah, that was eye-opening. So fear, and there is only one way to get over fear. Only one way. We think, we'll journal about it, we'll talk about it, we'll process it, we'll pray about it, we'll speak to a therapist about it, we'll get a coach and talk about it. All fine and good, helpful. Fear's not going to go away. The only way a fear will go away, do it. Do the thing that you are afraid to do.
What's the scariest thing you've done, Michele?
Oh, I've done a lot of scary things. Leaving 5 months after Lonnie passed away, I left my church, not having any idea if this little fledgling business idea that I had to do coaching and teaching would take off. That was a little scary.
Big one, yeah.
That was a little scary. Walking through the death of my husband. That was scary. Walking on fire with Edwin Gaines. That was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done.
Did you burn your feet?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I walked it twice. I walked twice. Terrified. And Edwin gave this advice, which I now give, and I always attribute it to her. When you're standing at that threshold of hot coals, expect the best, take a breath, take the first step. Expect the best, take a breath, take the first step. And what you will find is that the wall of fear was really just a veil, and you'll walk right through it.
That's powerful. Yeah. So there it is in the beautiful new compilation of 10 keys to living your best life. Yep. And people can find that on your website.
They cannot yet. I have not gotten it up there yet. So, but what you can find on that website is my contact information. Email me, call me. I'd be happy to send you one. It's not up on Amazon either. I haven't done that yet either, but I have it, and I'm my processing center for this book at this point. So you want it, reach out to me. I'll send it to you and send you a bill. $15.
Awesome. All right, we're here at the top of the show, and I'm wondering what you would say to people in regards to, there's people that are struggling at the moment. There's people that are in fear. There's people that are confused. And so I always like to leave my guests with a nugget, something. What does the world need now, Michele?
Oh, that is such a big question, Allie. I think we have to stand in what we say we believe. What I say I believe is that there's only one, and there's only love, and that universal energy, universal love, divine essence, God, whatever term you want to use, is in the middle of everything. Everything, no matter what it looks like, whether it's the loss of a beloved or a country that's in turmoil and what appears to be insanity, God is in the middle of that. And all is unfolding in divine perfect order. And with that, do what we're called to do. If there's an action we're called to take it. Now is a time not to be afraid to take action. Now is not a time to be afraid to speak up and say what is right in your heart. So it's grounded in our spiritual principles and truths, and being willing to step up and take whatever action you're called to take.
Beautiful. Thank you, my friend. That is some really, really good advice. I don't like the word advice, but yeah, it's helpful. Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for this great conversation. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Peace and love to you wherever you are. Know that you're not alone. And have a brilliant week. Mwah. Bye-bye.
Free my mind, open my heart with the whispers of truth. To live a conscious life, to live a conscious life on the growing edge.